originally started this pod to interview recent grads that successfully landed roles at creative advertising agencies. The philosophy is that hearing direct advice from someone that just went through what you are currently going through would be highly beneficial. Now, I admit there can be a disconnect when someone is on the podcast that's 10 to 15 years deep in their career, but their wisdom makes up for it. This episode goes back to my earlier philosophy, where I sit and have a pleasant conversation with Allison Farrell. Allison is an art director and social creative resident at the Martin Agency. A tried and true Richmond resident, Allison explains her journey from what started as an interest in film that led to a residency at one of the highest regarded creative agencies in the world. We learn in this episode how she was able to persevere her senior year as COVID-19 disrupted her plans. Thanks to creative thinking, close friends, and the urgency to help others, Allison and her undergraduate friends at VCU created Camp Adventure. Camp Adventure gave over 100 students an internship when agencies barely could adapt. Now, to see Allison's portfolio, special handpicked resources, and to connect with her, visit our Instagram at enteringad. Chicago Portfolio School supports this episode. They've helped out thousands of people break into the ad industry, and you can learn more about how by visiting chicagoportfolio.com. Tell them Breaking and Entering sent you, and they'll send you a free marker. All right, now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Allison Farrell, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm here in Richmond. The weather's nice, fall vibes. And I'm in the Ritz Cracker Room. We discussed this earlier, but there's a cracker on the wall. So I'm good.
And there is a cracker on the wall. You have the pillow too. For those that are listening, we do not post on YouTube, but there it is. You can imagine what the Ritz Cracker logo looks like. If not, go Google it.
Just dream about it.
Yes. So you kind of gave it away. If you haven't guessed by now by the title and her clue of being in Richmond, that should click pretty well. Allison, you are a social creative resident at the Martin Agency over there in Richmond. What does that mean?
Yeah, so this is actually a new program, a little foreshadowing, but I was a Marty resident, which is their internship program over the summer. But I am now an art director in the social studio. So, I tackle everything from strategy, but also focusing mainly on art direction. They're kind of just trying to give us the best experience to come out as art directors, but have that main backstory and stuff of strategy. So we're kind of new. We're kind of little hybrids. We wear many hats, but at the end of this, I will come out as an art director.
Okay. How many people are in that program? This is interesting.
Just 3.
Just 3. Do you want to give them shout outs?
Yeah. So Byron, they're kind of my partner. Not typical because they're not a copywriter, but we work together every day on all of our accounts. And then Taylor, she is the strategy resident.
Okay, so it's 2 creatives and 1 strategist. I mean, you're all creatives, but 2 art directors?
Yes.
Gotcha. No copywriters?
No, we just, through the program, they liked us and they wanted us to stay. And we work with other art directors and copywriters, so we're kind of just an additional creative help. And we also do our own projects too.
Okay, let's dive into that. What is the social lab? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, it's the social studio. I think in advertising, social media obviously is not a new thing, but since COVID, social media has just changed. Really with TikTok, the amount of campaigns and focus that has gone just towards social media activations, influencer collaborations has tripled, doubled, quadrupled. And in Martin, they haven't really had a specific section focused on social media. So that could be running the Twitters, the voice, the feel, the vibes of the accounts we have, like Axe, Hanes, Coinbase, all of that. But then also activations, partnerships with influencers, creating filters, creating in-feed posts, story posts. There's a lot that you can get into, but a lot of it is, having to like keep track of culture every second of the day and then figure out the best way in. So
Interesting. How many people are in this social studio, would you say? Because you said it's pretty new.
yeah, so just in the past year, I think it was created. Um, I would say 12 of us, like solely.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's creatives, there's strategists that all work with us. But we are like
Mm-hmm.
the foundation of everything social. We're reimagining social. My boss, Sharon Pinello, she's kind of the head of this, and she has this vision, and we're kind of helping her carry out the vision of what reimagining what social looks like at Martin. Because honestly, juniors slash maybe even mids to seniors, they have kind of a negative relationship with doing social work. They're like, no, just I want to make a TV spot. I want to
Mm-hmm.
do a 360 campaign. But there's a lot of impressions, a lot of press that you can get for your book. And I've always enjoyed social media and stuff. I actually had a YouTube channel growing up, so
There you go. What was on the YouTube channel?
beauty videos, vlogs.
Mm-hmm.
You can search me, nothing will come up. They're all archived.
Gotcha. Well, this is interesting. You bring up a good point because there is sort of a stigma around social, and
Yeah.
social's hard because you need to always be listening. It's kind of like PR in that sense, where you're monitoring and seeing what trends are going on. Um, I know, like TikTok, like the one trend I had to follow was the tomato feta pasta recipe, if you recall. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, that one went viral. It was like a brick of feta, and that was one of my jobs, was to track that for one of our clients. But you have to just always be on. So what is the vision that your boss is kind of trying to execute?
She could definitely speak to it better than me, but being at the forefront of those conversations and hitting that sweet spot of being relevant and talking about what's going on. If that's the Drake meme that recently went viral,
Hmm.
or um, Axe does a lot of, there was the Playboy Cardi album drop that's coming or something like that,
Hmm.
that they created a can for, and people are going crazy. Or the Doge can. Um,
Interesting.
they mocked that up, and then everyone went crazy, and then it became a real thing.
It's got to be
So
quick. It's got to be really quick. And I've noticed there's also a shift from like TikTok influencing commercials. They'll take some trends on from
yeah,
TikTok, apply it to commercials. Obviously, the Coors one. I forgot like what the name of the TikTok trend was, but like Coors did it. So there, it's even spreading towards commercials and larger uh, forms of media. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
it's
And
really interesting. Obviously, a lot's changed in the past year, but we've also found that like you have to underthink social sometimes. Like you can just comment on a TikTok and it could get like 100,000 likes just because
yes,
you know you just got to put it out there. You have to hit that sweet spot.
yeah. And our younger generation, like our audience, you're innately good at it, and you can offer those skills to brands that and teach them, even though they might not understand. But
Yeah, and that's where like my POV comes in of like I didn't know that I had this niche for social media, but because I grew up on social media, just like the audience as well, probably, I just immersed myself in pop culture and I didn't realize it was something I was already doing. So, this opportunity came to me by kind of just being myself. I never thought I would be like an art director in a social studio. But I'm learning a lot, and I think it's really fun.
So what can your day-to-day look like?
A lot of it starts with Twitter. I look on Twitter, see what's happening, think about the accounts I'm on and how what's trending we can do something with. Something I did, which was like even a small lift, was um, the pumpkin spice latte came out like a month ago, 2 months ago,
Mhm.
and everyone was talking about it. It was like number one on Twitter. So I just mocked up a quick pumpkin spice latte with the Coinbase card, and like somebody else came up with the caption. It was like every season is crypto season, and we
Mm.
posted it. So it's just like rapid response. But sometimes not everything's going on. So also on briefs for specific brands, some long-term stuff. So half of it, I feel like I'm doing daily one-off stuff, but then I'm also on like longer term projects as an art director.
Gotcha. You have to be agile, and that's interesting that Martin's created this social studio because I know a lot of agencies are really struggling with how to be agile. There is a lot of layers, and you have to get client approval. So it's partly being it's never really an issue. Most agencies are pretty agile. They can come up with a creative, and you guys have a good process now. It also relies on how willing the client is to jump on these opportunities and getting approval from their end. So I'm sure if a client goes to Martin, they're already aware of the power of advertising, power of social, and
Yeah.
that it is worth the investment. The ROI is high, so they're probably already willing to buy into what you guys are offering since the pitch process in the beginning.
And that's also something, that I think um, the social studio has created for these pitches is we didn't have much backing, we didn't have much proof, 8 months ago, but now we have the impressions, we have the numbers, we have the proof of like if a client came to us, why you should choose us, not even just for a social, but beyond that. So that's what
Mhm.
we're currently also working on.
Love it. So let's pause this conversation and kick it all the way back to how you even got started and ended up at Martin. Because Martin is obviously one of the better agencies
Yeah.
in the country. It's in its little it's in Richmond, it's outside those major hubs, and it just is a powerhouse for creativity. But and it's a lot of people and a lot of the listeners want to work there. So you've done something that's very special. They're obviously very talented, but let's get the backstory. Let's kick it back
Yeah.
to how you got started. What made you say I want to do advertising?
Oh goodness. So I'm gonna try not to talk for hours because the story goes up and down and left and right,
Sure.
which most people's journey. But I actually wanted to get into film. So I mentioned I had a YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Um, so I would, cut and edit my own little vlogs or fashion videos. This was like before the term influencer was coined. I had a little bit of a following. Sometimes I'll go out and people will still be like, "Did you used to make YouTube videos?" And I'm like, "Oh no."
Oh,
um,
really?
yeah, which I think it's still fun, but that's how I got into creativity slash art direction. Thinking back, I art directed my own, YouTube videos. Um, got rejected from VCU Arts art program, and I was like, shit, what do I do now? I thought I was gonna go into film, be like a director or something like that in cinematography. So I heard about advertising through my roommate that I was living with my freshman year. And she was like, just try it out. And I was like, all right. So I took the beginning stages classes and I actually joined the ad club at VCU. I kind of owe my advertising career half to my roommate because who knows if I would have ended up in advertising if she wasn't like, join the club, come join this major.
And what is she doing now?
She is a graphic designer in Richmond as well. So she's killing it. She's always been really ambitious, and we definitely pushed each other when we lived together, which was nice.
Nice.
So shout out to you, Emma. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, and then I joined the ad club. I was in it for about a year, going into my junior year. I still had no idea what advertising actually was, even though I was a year deep into my classes.
Love that.
And I actually was a double major, so I did strategic advertising as well as creative advertising at VCU undergrad.
Wait, those are two separate majors, or is there concentration? How does that
Two
work?
separate concentrations, but they call it like different majors.
Okay, interesting.
So you can double concentrate, which if your school has anything like that, I definitely recommend you doing that because I got to learn the strategy side, which I think strategy is embedded in everything you do as a creative. So you need to understand the strategy in order to make good creative. So I'm very happy that I chose to do both, even though I don't think I'm an amazing strategist at all. But I had my first strategy class with my professor Jessica Collins, and she was just my biggest cheerleader. I remember sitting in her chair. This was 2 years ago, like only 2 years ago. I was just beginning in advertising, or maybe it was 3 years ago. I don't remember, but I was like, "Hey, how do you become ad club president? Like, is there a way? Like, what's the dealio?" She's like, "Oh, I'll just like connect you with our current president." And I was like, "Okay." Had coffee with him, Kevin Nguyen. He's amazing. He's currently at Brand Center,
Okay.
and we just chatted. And he was like, "You seem passionate. Like shadow me, and we'll see what happens." I ended up becoming the next ad club president my senior year, but that's
Wow.
when COVID hit. So I had no idea what I wanted to do also, like throughout my advertising career. I started designing, I started creating campaigns, but I had no idea if I was going to be a strategist, a designer, an art director. It really wasn't until COVID hit and we came up with this little thing called Camp Adventure.
There it is.
So Camp Adventure came and blossomed and was created from the VCU Ad Club, but then also two
Mhm.
VCU alum, which I mentioned, Kevin Nguyen and Courtney Foster. Courtney was actually at Martin at the time. And we were almost like briefed. Courtney and Kevin came to us and they were like, "What are undergrad students missing right now?" And we were like, "Internships, duh, like everything is gone." And my team, myself, and then my exec board, we just started concepting this program, which would supplement an internship, and it became an 8-week internship program with a real client, and over 200 people participated. So a lot of
Mhm.
people have Camp Adventure on their intern or on their resume.
Yeah,
And we
that's
had
awesome.
speakers from everywhere, from the CEO of the Martin Agency to um, the founder of We Are Next, which is a huge,
Nimbly Kim,
educational.
shout out.
Mhm. Shout out to
Listen
her.
to her. Listen to her episode.
Yes, plug. Um, and it was great. So my role in that, which kind of came full circle of like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't have an internship. I'm helping create this program, but I did the whole entire brand identity. So the logo, the website, obviously I had other people, working with me, but
Mhm.
the look and feel of Camp Adventure, as well as the term Camp Adventure, was created by myself. And
Love it.
also the whole vibe was also in collaboration with my team as well.
Of course. Of
Um,
course.
but yeah, so coming out of that experience was crazy because my work was in Ad Age. It was in Ad Week. Um, I was getting interviews and stuff of like, "Oh, you're the person who didn't just like help create it, but I also got to say that's my logo." And
Hmm.
I never got to do anything like that before because I didn't have the confidence to be like, I want to be an art director because I didn't know I didn't know I was able to do that. I thought I wasn't good enough. So yeah, and then I think my senior year is when I was like, I want to be an art director. This is what I want. And we were still in COVID, obviously, my whole senior year, which was last year, 2020,
Hmm.
2021. And I had no internship. I had Camp Adventure. That's it. I didn't
Sure.
have some fancy, I did intern as a social media manager right before COVID, but that's
Hmm.
it. Nothing like design wise or anything. Um, so ad club was my focus. I was president of the ad club all of 2020 to 2021. We did events, we did tours, we did in the spring, which was my like um, Kevin, the old president, started it. It was called the Robertson Rush, which was like a creative sprint.
Yep.
But because of COVID, it never happened. So I got to take the name and do whatever I want with it. And I did the branding for that. We created um, like PR boxes for people who are participating.
What is this? What is this program?
It's a creative sprint. So basically, a like 4-day sprint with a brand and an advertising agency to come up with a campaign for them.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we worked with a local agency called Fable,
Yep.
and they had a real client that they wanted a rebrand, or actually to create the full branding for. So I helped structure that program, but also got to do the art direction for it as well. So
So
um,
you got those are your two big things then. It was the Camp Adventure and then the Creative Rush. What was it called again?
the Robertson Rush.
Robertson Rush.
So
Interesting.
yeah, those are probably the big ticket items in my book. They're the things that I was most passionate about because I basically took my passion for like leadership, um, creating events, and like giving back to the community of like, I wish I had this, so I'm just going to create it, um, and art direction. And I just put them all together. And obviously, with the help of my team, because I couldn't do it by myself, um, we came out with some really, really cool stuff. So
The question that comes to my mind now is, do you think you still have that like drive, that passion, that like leader, like yearning to lead when you started Camp Adventure, when you did the Robertson Creative Rush? Now that you're in the real world, do you feel like that's still going strong, or you've been limited?
I think like this is my only experience, which is Martin. So I
Hmm.
don't have, it's not like I've bopped around different agencies, but
Right.
the culture here is so accepting of who you are as a person that I think it's allowed me to be who I want to be. It's allowed me to take leadership. It's allowed me to continue to be who I am. So if that's like basically, reaching out to my boss, being like, hey, I'm really interested in helping with this. And she's like, awesome, you want to take lead? And I'm like, hell yeah. Like,
Mm.
that's exactly what I want.
Well,
So,
that's great.
um, yeah, they
That's good that that's good that they
definitely
make you
don't
feel
just,
that way.
yeah, they definitely don't just treat you as an intern. They don't treat you as
Mhm.
a junior. I feel very equal here.
Mhm.
And I think that really also starts with their leadership team. I've talked to almost every um, person on the exec board, from Kristen Cavallo, the CEO,
Mhm.
to the ECDs here, and they're just walking around. They're
Mhm.
just people, and they want you to, you know, they want you to treat them like people because they treat you like a person, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Okay, so let's continue then. So you had the Robertson Creative Rush, you had the Camp Adventure, two monumental resume points that were super influential, I'm sure, to a lot of students. I know people that have Camp Adventure on their resumes, some of my friends.
yeah.
So thank you for doing that. I think that's spectacular. We also interviewed the founders from Indoor Recess, which was also a great program. And then there was COVID fellowship program. I mean, I like your brand identity a lot. I'm not going to say I like it the best, but I kind of
I
do.
don't like it the best either, so
No, I do like it the best. I think it is really cool.
oh. I thought you
Um,
said I'm not gonna say I like it the best.
yeah, well, my joke was I'm not going to say it, but I said it.
Oh,
So, yeah.
I don't like it the best, but it's also because it's my work, and once you stare at it for a long period of time. I just remember my team at the end of it being like, if we have to use these colors one more time, I
Yeah.
swear to God.
Yeah. Gotcha. No, it's very good. And it's a good concept. It was fun.
Yeah, it really, I guess, definitely it led me to where I am. I think even without those, because they're so specific. So I don't want like anybody to listen to be like, well, shit, I don't have a camp adventure. You can make a camp adventure, not like, the same thing, but you can take what you're passionate about and make it your own unique proposition, because that's, at least from talking to recruiters and stuff, that's, they look for stuff like that. They want
Yes.
you to have good work, they want you to have good ideas, but they also want you to have a different perspective, a good point of view. And so I was kind of known as like the camp adventure intern, because
Sure.
that was my POV.
Yeah, well, that's how you want if you want to break into really great creative agencies, you need to have something like that. I mean, not maybe exactly the same, but having that POV, like you said, is super important to get recognized by the Martins, by the Widens, by the Drogas. Like that will help you get on their radar, and then your work and who you are comes into play as
Yeah,
well.
even if it's
Um,
like something like a passion, like sewing or making rugs.
exactly.
I follow a lot of creatives that make just cool art, and I'm like, I can't really do that. Like, I guess I could, but that's not what I'm passionate about.
Sure.
So just having a passion like that. And
Mhm.
but while all this was going on, of like, that was a full 360 of a year, from camp adventure to
Crazy year.
Robertson Rush. um, I was obviously finishing my undergrad degree, but VCU has this school called the Brand Center. um,
Mhm.
Not sure if you've heard of it. Maybe a few people know of it, but I, ever since I joined advertising my sophomore year, I was like, I'm going to the Brand Center. That's what I want. I just remember touring the place and feeling like I belonged there. Um, just being surrounded by that energy of like really hardworking people. That's like what I wanted. And I felt like I didn't have that in undergrad, besides the like small group I was in. So it came that time of year to apply to Brand Center while I was, still president of the ad club and stuff. And
Mhm.
I applied. I actually was going to apply for experience design because I still didn't feel good enough for art direction. Um, Nothing wrong with the experience design track. Um, I just didn't, I don't know. I just didn't think I was good enough. Like, imposter syndrome is real. And um, applied for art direction, and then obviously had to wait many a months to find out. And um, then around the end of my school years, when I applied to Marty, the Martin Agency Internship Program, and um, I applied for the art direction track, but I actually heard back from the design track. So I was like, okay. Um, I was like, I don't really know what the difference between a designer and an art director is. So now I
Mhm.
do, but I didn't really know at the time. So I interviewed for the design track, and I ended up in the brand communications department at Martin, which is Martin as a brand. So they do PR, they do awards, but they never had designers.
So
To,
like their internal department.
so nothing like client wise, just Martin as a brand, which they're so good at their creative work, and everything they make is so beautiful. They wanted to reflect that on their social media as well. So that's where Byron and I, they were my other designer partner type thing.
Mhm.
And we both were at Martin for 3 months designing their social media stuff. We would get briefs. I did the Pride stuff. It was called Pride washing or rainbow washing.
Mhm.
That was really fun. I did a series called like the disposable series or snapshot. So if you go on like their feed, you might see a few of like the series that I did. Um, but backtracking actually a little bit, I got Marty. I got
Yes.
like my acceptance on like a Wednesday. I was so happy.
Hmm.
Literally, like, it was crazy. I remember I interviewed with Elizabeth Paul, the CSO, and like an hour later, I had my letter, and I was like, "You're kidding,
Wow.
right?"
Good for them and good for you. I like when
Um,
the agencies are quick with it like that.
it wasn't. I had a few interviews before that,
Sure.
but just solidifying it with her and
Mhm.
just like even her taking the time, the CSO, to interview me, and we just talked. She just wanted to get to know me as a person and my passions and what
Right.
I wanted to bring to Martin. Um, and then um, and then I got Marty, and then 2 days later I got into the brand center, and I was like,
Wow.
shit, this is gonna be a tough decision. And I remember everyone around me being like, you're in a good spot. Like, why are you complaining? And I'm like, I always wanted to be at Martin and I always wanted to go to the brand center. Having to pick between the two is going to be really hard
Why?
because I guess I thought that I had to go to brand center in order. It felt like an equation to me. It felt like brand center plus learning equals Martin or equals a big agency like Martin. Um,
Yes.
so I guess like realizing that I maybe didn't need brand center to get to Martin just kind of made my brain explode. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this information.
But can't you always go back to brand center? Like there's no like
Yeah,
yeah.
a
So
hundred
why
percent.
yeah. So even if like the internship didn't work out, which obviously it worked out, you could have done the internship, made great connections there, and said, okay, I'll be back in a little bit. I'm gonna go. Obviously I need to better my book or whatever. I'm gonna go to brand center and then come back later. I'm sure
Yeah,
that would have also been an opportunity.
100%. And I think, which that's kind of just what ended up happening was like, I just had to tell myself exactly what you said was, all right, I'm going to take this internship. I'm going to do my absolute best and hope for the best. And then if it doesn't work out, I guess I'll go to brand center.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and through the internship, I really just worked my butt off. Not even just in the department I was in, but Martin is just, I can't speak for any other agency, but like Martin is just so welcoming and um I don't know, it just feels very different. The culture here is very different. Um the pressure isn't like I hear this crazy amount of pressure in advertising of like of it's very cutthroat and stuff, but people still respect, that family life balance. They're so giving, like they give back all the time. I'll like tell my family about just what happens at Martin, and they'll be like, "Are you sure you don't work at Google? This sounds like
Hmm.
Google." And I'm like, "No, it's just Martin." But it seriously is my dream job, and I've had a lot of mentorship. Um, and I think that's also what stands out for Martin is that they're willing to give you the time and the resources to learn and grow. They're not just like you're either the best or get out. Like they're not like that at all.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, no, they're great for a reason. Um, Culture is super important to create great work. You have to have a great environment to be creative. Like you
yeah,
can't just be creative just like on a snap. Like you need to like work at it. So
yeah,
that's it's a testament. All the great work they've done over the years. It just makes sense. The awards make sense. It starts with the people.
yep,
Um, so you took the internship, which turned out well. You worked hard, you had mentors, and then it turned into this residency. And now we're back where we started, which is it comes full
yeah.
circle. So what's the plan now? What are you thinking?
So I'm I guess I'm not halfway through this residency. It's kind of like a second part of residency. This wasn't planned or anything. This is just another extension of learning because I'm in a completely different department. So I'm working on client work. I wasn't doing that over the summer. Besides like trying to put my foot in the door in other accounts if I could to help them out. But I plan on being here. I'm just working my butt off and focusing on my work and also, making connections as well. That's something I forgot to mention. That was a huge, huge factor into why I'm here. Is that yes, I had Camp Adventure and Robertson Rush and was president of the ad club, but I like stalked Martin. And I'm not saying that's like what you should do, but I had a goal in mind. It was like, okay, where do I want to be after this, if not Brand Center? Martin. I want to stay in Richmond. I'm actually from Richmond. I grew up here.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah, I've been here my whole life, which eventually I'm going to have to leave. They're going to kick me out.
Interesting.
But so I knew I wanted to be at Martin, and I just started connecting with people. I think probably February, I would say, or January. I knew I was graduating in May, and I was like, all right, I'm going to reach out to juniors, be friends with them, connect with them. I'm going to take their recommendations of who I should talk to, connect with those people, and just like keep growing my network.
Yeah. It's a great equation.
That's just really is what I mean. It's I don't know the answer of like why I ended up here. I think it's just everything together.
Sure.
But having those connections were so, so, so valuable for when I got here.
Right.
Because I kept a spreadsheet and everything. Like that's a big tip is if you're networking, keep a spreadsheet of everyone you network with, the day, what you talk about, and their role and position.
Oh, I tried doing that once. I remember I had like this. Oh, it's terrible. Like I stick with it for sure, but
Yeah.
maybe that's just not how my specific brain works.
It's okay. I have definitely short-term memory loss or long-term, whichever one. But
Sure.
I would not. I'm really bad with names. I'm really bad with people, so I had to write them down. And so then when I got here, it felt like I was already here. It felt like, I walked in the building and I still can, the people I'm friends with at Martin are actually people I met before, which is crazy.
So were you like, because this was during like, still are, but during the heart of COVID, I guess 2020, 2021, were you getting on like Zoom calls with everybody? What was your plan once you reached out to them?
Yeah, I would just, I had like a formula of I would find people on LinkedIn, and then I would find their book, and then I would find a piece of, their book that I liked and could resonate with. And I would reach out to them for a specific reason. If that was you went to Brand Center, you went to VCU, you're an art director, whatever it tied back to me. And then just hopped on a call and just vibed with them. I would prepare my questions, but I wanted two things out of the conversation. I wanted them to know who I am and realize I'm like a person and a human. I'm not just a robot like trying to interview them.
Sure.
So I'd, try to connect with them on asking them about where they live and be like, oh, I'd always wanted to go there, not just a super formal interview.
Yeah.
And then, what was the second one? I definitely had a second one, I promise.
That's okay. But no, you just made yourself apparent to these people.
Yeah. And then it was just a really big help in making myself feel comfortable once I got here. But yeah, it was all over Zoom.
Yeah.
And I slowly worked my way up in terms of who I talked to, just because I was nervous, to be completely honest.
Of course.
So.
Yeah, and it worked out. So I love it. That's a great break-in story, really. And it's crucial to hear this because we're still kind of in this mess. Yeah. And a lot of these lessons still apply to our listeners today. And if you start early, one of the big lessons here, you started in January, you could start really right now creating those
Yeah.
relationships, those networking at those agencies that you want to be at.
It's just,
Maybe,
why not? Like,
yeah,
literally, just why not? If I remember Kevin told me beginning of my senior year, he was, again, past ad club president.
sure.
He was like, where do you want to work when you graduate? And I said, my dream job's probably Instagram. Like, that's where I'd love to be. And he's like, okay, just reach out to 1 or 2 people a month. And by the time you graduate, you'll have whatever the number is of connections. And even if that doesn't get you a job when you graduate, because, you know, their qualifications could be outside of your reach,
Sure.
at least you have 20 connections at Instagram.
Yes.
And eventually that will probably get you something. Even if it's just like a shout out, I like your work.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe later on in your career, you never know where those connections lead you to. And
that's why it's so important just to like be nice. And people have probably heard that, but it doesn't mean they follow that. Egos in advertising are very big, but at Martin, that feels very small. I really don't feel like I've come into many people that I'm like, you got a big ego. Which makes me want to be here as well, just because I feel comfortable. So I
love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I remember Emily Matisse's episode was one of the highest listened to episodes. So
yeah, I don't think
definitely draws a lot of people in.
I never met her in person, but I remember hearing about her when I was maybe a freshman or sophomore, probably a sophomore. And she got a job at Martin before she even graduated.
Right.
I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, go listen to that episode, Emily Matisse, or Matisse. I forgot how it's pronounced. It was an earlier episode.
Matisse. Yeah.
Matisse. It was an earlier episode for sure, and it's still one of the most listened to. But yours will be now, because this was great. Oh, yeah. Is there any other last piece of advice or resources that you recommend to our audience to follow, listen, or read?
I'm trying to think. I know with what we just talked about, literally LinkedIn stalking, is, if I didn't do that, I don't think I would be where I am, of just talking to people. But probably my biggest advice is just have a goal and just go for it. Like, no one is gonna stop you except yourself. So whatever that goal is, even if it's just like, I want to design a poster, then just do it. And I think we just get so in our head, and I'm the same exact way, of doubting ourselves and feeling like an imposter, but just having a goal, setting your mind to it, and just achieving it. And that's how I feel like I've gotten my success, is literally just working my ass off until something happens. And I also really do think that if COVID didn't happen, I would not be where I am, which obviously I'm not going to give a shout out to COVID, but
no, that's an interesting point. Like, cause I probably wouldn't have started this podcast.
Yeah.
So why? Cause you just networked more and you got on Zoom calls?
I mean, obviously Camp Adventure.
Yeah.
The accessibility as students, like, there's no excuse as a student to not be networking, to not be reaching out, because you have it at your fingertips. And if you don't like networking, then there's no excuse to like not be designing more or writing more.
You can focus on your book, and then just a better book leads to better jobs as well. Like, sometimes your book will do the networking for you.
Exactly. But I do get it. It's very overwhelming. And it's very easy to compare yourself to other people. So anybody I talk to, and I try to give back, even though I'm literally 22 years old, but I'll always want to mentor people. My new ad club president, she's doing amazing, and I'm always on the phone with her, giving her my advice, giving her my point of view, and I'll always continue to do that. So if anyone listening ever needs any advice on anything, even though I'm a child, just let me know. I will always be open to talking.
They appreciate that, and it's always nice. Sometimes guests that are older, they're too far removed. They might not understand exactly what's going on. You kind of just went through all this, so advice is always appreciated. And how can they reach out to you? I'll link everything
Yeah.
on our social posts, but
Yeah, my LinkedIn, my brand is 1975 Al. That's a whole nother story that we don't have to get into, but that is my portfolio, 1975 Al, and as well as my Instagram. So
perfect. Well, this has been great. I appreciate it so much, and our audience does too. That's all I got for you, Allison. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Did you hear anything on this episode about a job you'd like to have someday, soon, in advertising, strategy, design? The kind of job where you use your brain and your creativity? If you did, chances are a portfolio can really help you get that job. That's where Chicago Portfolio School comes in. They have programs and classes that help you show off your thinking and get you the job you want. So visit them at chicagoportfolio.com. And if you drop my name, Gino, into the chat box, they'll send you more info and a cool Sharpie. Or just some more info. You can decide that. Thanks. Thank you all for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's guest. Make sure you go and connect with them on LinkedIn. Tell them that Breaking and Entering sent you. Now, thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio technician, and Buchun Zhang, our creative director, as well as the student team from the Midnight Oil Agency at the University of Illinois. Can't do it without you all. Thank you very much. We will see you all next week with another amazing guest.